Hi, it's Stephen here from Sound of an Ocean Wave, and I just thought I would do a quick video about Beltane, the Festival of Beltane. We're at that point in the Wheel of the Year. For those that follow the Wheel of the Year, if this is something that doesn't interest you, then fine. You can you know, you're quite welcome to turn off and go and find something else to watch. Um, but if you are interested in the Wheel of the Year and the festival that we're celebrating at this point in the year, which is, of course, Beltane, then keep watching and hopefully you'll find it interesting. So, what is Beltane? Beltane is the Gaelic or Celtic May Day festival. Okay, and of course, it's the 1st of May today. And even those that don't celebrate the Wheel of the Year, that don't celebrate these festivals, particularly I know here in the UK, we do celebrate May Day. In fact, it's what we call a bank holiday, where a lot of the banks and shops are closed. Not all of them, but it's traditionally a holiday where people have time off of work. As I say, not everywhere, but traditionally it is that time. It is a holiday day. The schools are closed, banks are closed. That's why it's called a bank holiday. It's traditionally held at Beltane, that is, on May the 1st of May, which is about midway between the spring equinox and the summer solstice, which is in June. And that's in the northern hemisphere. It's celebrated on Beltane is celebrated on November the 1st in the southern hemisphere, because obviously with different hemispheres, with the how it reacts with the seasons and the sun and the way the Earth's position, basically, it is different. It's more or less the opposite way around in the southern hemisphere. But so we'll talk about the northern hemisphere because that's where I am. This is where perhaps a lot of you guys are. And apologies to those if you are in the southern hemisphere. Just um, you know, I think yours would be Samhain about now in the southern hemisphere, because we celebrate Samhain around October the 31st, November the 1st. In the northern hemisphere, so I would say that that's and they are very very linked. They're like because they're the 2 points, Beltane and Samhain are the 2 points in the year, in the wheel of the year, where the veil becomes the thinnest, becomes thin, where we can connect with the spiritual realms, with the unseen world, as it were, where a lot of the unseen beings, like the Fae, for instance, the Fae are found, and and of course, with Samhain, it's mainly with our ancestral spirits, those that have gone before us. We can connect with our ancestors, with those that have passed, those that have gone into the next realm. So, because of the thinning of the veil, and those are the 2 points. So they're the very key points in the year. But for us in the northern hemisphere, it is Beltane, and the word Beltane roughly translates as a bright fire or fire of Bel, after the Celtic god Bel, or Belenus more precisely. And a lot of the festival, as we'll go into, has to do with fire, and has to do with the sun coming back into light. The sun's always been there; it's not been dead. But I mean, the earth becomes more affected by the sun. It brings new life. Things start to spring to life. We're entering, where the peak of spring, and with the promise of summer, and everything is coming to life, and hopefully more sunnier days. It is sunny today, funny enough. So that is very apt. But despite the fact that the Bel or Belanus or the various spellings of that um, has an association with fire or the sun, is not actually a sun god. It's more of an agricultural god, particularly to do with livestock. More of a he has more of a pastoral sort of animal husbandry sort of realm. Where like the sheep and the cows and everything are more to do with their protection and their fertility, and you know when things, the lambs are going to be born, and all that kind of thing. It's more to do with that. In fact, in one place, I forget where, but in one, there was, I think it's somewhere in Ireland, I'm not sure. Um, I ought to have made a note of it, but it was an interesting sort of ritual they used to do in this place. Don't know if they still do it. I doubt it, but they would light two bonfires, and they would bring the livestock, like the sheep, the cows, etc., and take them into the pastures to feed in the pastures that are now beginning to form. Because maybe in the winter they can't really go out to graze. There's no grass if there's probably under snow or something like that. But now the grass is getting greener and it's getting better for them to go and feed on. So they'll take the animals to graze. And what they used to do is used to walk them through the two bonfires, and that was like a ritual of cleansing and protection. That they used to do at this time, and as they took them into the pastures. So it was all about making the fertility and the abundance and the well-being of the livestock, the agricultural livestock that the farmers would rely on for their living, and obviously to provide food as well and everything else for the community. So that is very much the a good example of what was done at Beltane. And of course, not necessarily, walking animals through between two bonfires, but bonfires are a very key feature of the Beltane festival, where the fire represents the return of the sun, in the sense of the effects of the sun. We can bask in the sun a bit more, everything starts coming to life, the animals can go out into the fields more, the flowers start to bloom, and we see that the earth has woken up after being dormant in the winter, mainly dormant in the winter. And this is where it's the celebration of life and fertility and abundance. Okay, that was when we looked at the earth. This is the point where the earth begins that process and really springs to life, and that's what the Beltane celebrates. It's what we celebrate at this time. And there still today, I do know that people do. There are bonfires that are lit in honor of Beltane, and the fire, as I say, to me, it brings the warmth. The warmth of the heat that comes from the summertime. It is the promise of warmth and light, and also to me as well is the with bonfires and fire. Um, you can you can choose to throw things onto the fire, things that you don't want anymore, and that tends to fuel the fire and burning. So it's a good time to divest ourselves of things that we don't need in our lives anymore. To ritually, metaphorically divest ourselves of these things. Almost let the fires of Beltane, either literal, if you want to put them into a literal bonfire, if you go to a bonfire at this time, or you have a fire in your yard, obviously with all the safety precautions and everything. Um, and a lot of people like to gather around a bonfire and share stories and have that sense of community, and which is also a good thing, because in the winter we tend to hide away a lot in our own homes. And now when the brighter, nicer weather becomes, we tend to get out more and mix more with people, and that's a good sense of building relationships and everything else. So to me, that's another purpose of having the fire, where you gather around it. But you could literally put things into the fire, or write things on a piece of paper and burn them in fire, or do burn them on your altar. We'll get to that later. Um, Things that you want to get rid of. It's like a cleansing. Fire's also a very protective, as well as the warmth, obviously, that we've talked about. It can be a thing of protection. Sometimes when you go camping, when you go into a wooded clearing or something where there's wild animals, there's not so many wild animals here in this country that can come and be a danger. But in some cases, if you're in a place where you have bears, for example, or other creatures like that, mountain lions. If you're in the States, for instance, bears and mountain lions and other things like that. Quite often, you light a fire, and that the fire is a deterrent, and helps to keep these animals at bay. That's the idea anyway. And so it can have a protective, that fire can have a protective element to it as well. And as in the ritual that I described about walking the livestock between the two bonfires, was to ritually, with the energy of the god Belenus or Bel, um, to give them cleansing first of all, and protection, to watch over them, so that they could safely grow and have fertility, reproduce and produce, the food and milk from and all the things that the farmers would want from the livestock. So there's that protection and cleansing or healing aspect to it as well. And of course, um, it is a festival to celebrate creativity and fertility, creative, procreative. Those that follow a pagan path that involves a god and goddess. It's about the coming together of the god and goddess. It's about literal, the two becoming one. It can be about fertility. It can be about um, spiritual relationships. It can be about literal relationships coming together between a couple. People joining together and sharing in that. Um, that I mean, um, past traditions was that they used to go out into the fields in pairs and couple up in the fields, and through the act sort of brought that energy of fertility and creation and conception into the fields, so that the fields would grow their crops, and that kind of situation. So it's very much a creative, fertile kind of celebration of that concept. So it's a good time to be creative, to start projects, to put some energy in. Good time to perhaps to, if you're a couple and you want to have a baby, it's a good time to get together and get that and conceive that baby, maybe. So it's all kinds of things, literal and spiritual, that we can do in our lives at this time. So what are some of the correspondences, if we want to sort of surround ourselves with things that represent this time? Um, well, with food and drink being an important part of feasting, feasting is another part, because you can sit around the bonfire, you can cook on the bonfire, you can cook with fire, an open fire. So, and you can feast, you can prepare food and everything, and then celebrate. It's part of your celebration. And a lot of the food and drink is things like cakes or bread, oats, honey, dairy, spinach, salad. Very good sign of summer, particularly here, is that we perhaps eat salads a little bit more. I love salads, and I like, in the summer, look forward to be able to eating salads. Um, in the winter, you want more hot foods to keep you warm, but in the summer, if you don't fancy a hot meal because it's a bit warm and you don't want to get any hotter, you can have salad. things like asparagus, strawberries. Strawberries are a very summer thing, particularly here, through the tennis tournament at Wimbledon. A very a common thing there is where they give out, you can get strawberries and cream at Wimbledon at the tennis tournament. They are summer thing, strawberries, and funnily enough, you can see that strawberries have the seeds where they're visible on the outside, and it's about seeds as well. This festival of forming the seed and planting the seeds and having the seeds within us. Like the strawberry has the seeds within itself to reproduce, to produce other strawberries later. So lemonade, um, and red wine and ale. And it's a time when, of course, when flowers and everything come out. And I enjoy that, even though I suffer with hay fever in the summer. It's a bit not so bad now as what used to be when I was younger. But that means what smells are around. That links into like incenses and oils. And it could be rose, jasmine, ylang ylang, frankincense, musk, geranium, peach, vanilla, rosemary, and peppermint. Very strong smells, very vibrant smells there. Crystals, don't know how they, if you're into crystals, emerald, beryl, malachite, rose quartz. Obviously, that's that love aspect of Beltane. Garnet, cornelian, the passion of that, the jasper, the moonstone, and tourmaline. Tourmaline could, to me, is more protective, the protective element. Animals, things like the cats, goats, cows, sheep, rabbits, frogs, frog spawn, the producing frog spawn, and the tadpoles that become the frogs and everything. That process, I can remember that from my childhood, very very firmly. And of course, the cattle and the sheep that we talked about, going into the pastures and going through between those two bonfires. We've mentioned those, but one of the swans, swallows, doves, unicorn, even, and that's a mythological animal, but it could represent the underrealm, that connection between where we have the Fae, the next world, the unseen realm, and that thinning of the veil that connects us to that. And that, to me, the unicorn represents that connection. But probably one of the most common or well-known animal representation is the bee. And you can see why, because it produces the honey. Of course, we've had honey in the food category, but because of how the pollination, and it assists with pollination, the fertilization, as it were, the reproduction, carrying the pollen from one place to another, and that's how things grow and spread and reproduce through the actions of the bees, and why we need bees. And in some places, bees are under threat because of things that man is doing, and we need to, and that upsets the balance of nature. So the bee is a very good symbol of the Beltane festival. So um, so these are like things you could do to surround yourself with, or even things you could decorate your altar with. For example, acorns. From little acorns, big oak trees grow. And that could be the motto of Beltane. Antlers representing probably the horned god aspect. Fairies. Fresh flowers. Of course, the flowers, the bloom, the coming to life of the flowers, the vegetation. Of course, you want fresh flowers. You don't want dead flowers, because that's the opposite of what you're wanting. You want the signs of life and blooming vibrancy. You don't want, so don't keep them too long. Make sure you have fresh flowers. Green candles, a god and a goddess on your altar. You don't have the green man. I won't talk about him much here, but he figures in at this time as well. Some of you may know more about that than I. I'm not going to go into that. A maypole, like a miniature representation of a maypole. where, you know, in the maypole with the ribbons around the pole that everybody used to grab and dance around, which was like a fertility thing as well. A cauldron, you know, where you can, if you've got a little cauldron or something on your altar, you could do that thing I said about write down what you want to cleanse yourself of, what you want to divest from yourself, put it in and burn it in your cauldron. So, and that leads to spells and rituals that can be done, and the focus of those spells and rituals at this time. And I said it's all about creativity and fertility, abundance, prosperity. So anything, any kind of working or ritual or something focused that's on the subject of creative energy, abundance, prosperity, fertility, love, self-improvement, you know, getting rid of some of the stuff you don't want and building and growing as a person, bringing life into there, improving relationships. It's a good time for hand fasting or wedding, you know, the hand fasting being the pagan for a ceremony of a couple coming together and being wedded, sort of in that tradition, um, because it's the two becoming one aspect, and cleansing and protection, which was I've also mentioned. So you could do a spell, a ritual, or an intention of some anything connected with that, using the fiery energy and the vibrant, life-giving energy of Beltane to get behind it. And just be thankful that this is an opportunity. The world is coming to life again. The earth is springing to life with all kinds of things. The earth, Mother Gaia, is giving us that life-giving energy that's to enable, to empower us, to provide for us with our physical needs, with food, and we can grow crops and we can grow things and eat for our food later. We'll harvest later in the year, coming up with the harvest sort of festivals that we have later in the wheel of the year. But this is where it starts. So it's a good start. It's the start of a new month. We've got this Beltane festival, um, and we can sort of start a blank page and bring that life energy, the vibrancy of that energy into our daily lives, and start creating what we want to bring into our lives, sowing those seeds, taking the action, cultivating the you know the ground of where we're sowing, either metaphorically or physically, um, and seeing what we can create and bring into reality, and just be thankful for that life-giving power of the earth, of the earth that comes at this time, and that this is a time to enjoy the sun, to enjoy the warmth, to enjoy the increased amount of light that we get, because it won't be there forever. The wheel will continue to turn, and later down into the year, where the wheel turns and turns and turns, you know, the days will become gradually darker again and colder again, and the wheel will turn right back around. So we need to enjoy the time we have now and to make most of the opportunities. So that's what I would say the Beltane asks us to do. So let's be thankful and let's start getting creative. Okay, so let's have my brief little introduction and how I see Beltane. For me, it's going to be about creative projects, doing more different videos, perhaps on my YouTube channel, other than the daily draws, which I hope you watch and like. If you don't, take a look. Not every day necessarily, but I want to bring a bit more variety into the channel, and this is the start of it. And this is where, you know, I'm bringing the creativity and that energy into it. And the other aspects of my life, I want to bring in that energy and create the things that I want. And I invite you to do the same. I hope you found this video interesting and has given you an understanding of what Beltane's all about. And I will do the next. I will try and do the next festivals, which I think Litha is the next one, I believe. Which I believe is the summer solstice. This is the midway point, more or less, between towards that. I may even do, if you'd be interested, let me know. I may even do an overview of the whole wheel of the year as well, and how I view it and see it. So, but until then, thank you very much for listening. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you all again very soon. Okay, bye bye.